Hello, it's Kim Keefe with Kim Keefe's Team Open Doors, powered by Keefe Real Estate. And it's another session of Kim Keefe's Community Corner. There's a lot of K's going on there. Only to be complimented by our next guest, which is Erin Carey, of course. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. I'll introduce you as a woman of mystery, I think, but notably, of course, as one of 5 founding moms for the Faces of Narcolepsy nonprofit organization, of which you're currently serving as the president.
Yep.
So, Erin, I know you just for years, and what I know about you is that you are successful at just anything you want to do. So tell us, if you would, what makes you a great speaker on the topic of sleep?
Yeah, so I have a unique perspective with sleep. I am the mother of 5 here in Woodstock, and 2 of my kids have narcolepsy, and they were diagnosed relatively early in their lives, and we've kind of struggled through the ins and outs of narcolepsy and sleep specifically, and trying to improve their sleep quality so that they get the most restorative sleep for their brains. So that's the reason that I started a nonprofit. We serve the pediatric narcolepsy community throughout our country. In fact, we're in a couple countries. We have a flagship event called Campference, where families get to come together and bring their kiddos with narcolepsy, and the kiddos with narcolepsy get to do typical campy type things, while the parents also do what's like more of a conference, which gets the whole idea of Campference. So, which is in March every year in Texas. So we've just been kind of inundated with sleep from the perspective of how to fix sleep in our family, and also just serving the community of pediatric narcolepsy. So,
well, that's a handful of reasons that make you qualified for sure.
Yeah.
So share with us, what are the top 3 things that that we can do to improve our sleep quality?
Yeah, so it's so interesting. I was recently talking to someone, I was on a walk, and I said, hey, tell me, do you understand what sleep hygiene is? And my friend was like, that's kind of a weird one. What are you talking about? And because we're inundated with like sleep conferences and narcolepsy talk, sleep hygiene is this phrase that's tossed around for us that we just understand. And so I don't think everybody knows. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about sleep hygiene. And sleep hygiene is basically the things you do before you go to sleep that tell your brain it's time to shut down. And so that looks different for everybody, likely. Some of us, it looks the typical things you see are common, like maybe you brush your teeth, or you change your clothes, or you get a drink of water. The things that you do before you go to sleep, that's all called sleep hygiene. So you want to establish a routine so that your brain knows, okay, it's time for me to shut down. Another thing you need to know about your brain, which is sort of an interesting thing, is that your sleep trigger is right next to your eat trigger in your brain. So if you're late at night snacking, it could be because you're hungry, because your brain is trying to tell you maybe that you're tired, and you're getting the message of you're hungry. In fact, almost all of our kiddos with narcolepsy, we see them gain weight when they get narcolepsy because they are confusing the sleep eat trigger. So that's another thing. If you're noticing that you're eating right before you go to bed, it could be that your body is just tired and you should just go to sleep. So number 1 thing is to establish a routine when you're headed into that time of night when you're headed to bed. So you're going to want to go to bed about the same time every day. That's another thing that if you can. Now, I know I have kids that work overnight, and I know it's tricky sometimes to always do the same thing every day, but I would recommend trying to go to bed and establish a routine. And that's like tip number 1. So
Awesome.
Do you do that, Kim? Do you have a sleep routine?
I do, because I have a wake up routine. So in order to wake up, that I have to, right. We do tea in bed before we go to bed. So that's one of our.
Perfect. So that's part of your brain's knowing it's time to shut down and time to go to sleep.
Exactly. So go on, keep going. What's number 2?
Perfect. So just establishing back with that routine thing is also just getting rid of blue screens. I know everybody talks about this. It's so common, especially with kids. You don't want them to go to bed with screens in their hands. I know it's like pretty much the thing in our household that my narcoleptics would fight the most is the concept of having to give up their phones before bed. And it does make a huge difference. And every doctor will tell you this. It's not just me, and I certainly am not a doctor, but just get rid of the blue screen. So if you can, in fact, neurologists are telling patients to switch to book reading, and because it's not a blue screen. And if you can put a blue blocker on your phone before you go to bed too, at a certain time, that might help your brain also establish that good sleep hygiene. So point 2, health choices. So we want you to make good health choices. We being me, I want you to make good health choices. But some of those good health choices, I'm doing one of them right now, is getting enough vitamin D. And remember when you were a little kid and you used to play outside and you used to ride your bike and you got all this sun and you had no problem sleeping, right? Because you were baked by the sun every day, and it's actually kind of good. And I have read a lot of research about how often you should be doing sunbathing, essentially, but just being out in the sun. And that's like 30-minute increments 3 times a week should get you enough vitamin D. We struggle here in the Midwest with the vitamin D in the wintertime. I mean, it's really a problem. So I know people who sleep better when they're out in the sun, and that's because of the vitamin D.
Awesome. We need more vitamin D for sure. Come on, sun.
Yeah, I know. Well, we were supposed to get rain for the last couple of days, and it's been really great. So it's really an added benefit. Another thing is to increase your movement. Now, I'm not talking about crazy movement. I am one of those crazy movers. In fact, I walked 5 miles this morning just because I feel like sometimes I just need to do that. And I'm just talking about maybe even going on a half a mile walk. I'm not talking about doing that right before you try to go to sleep, but just during your day. If you can get out and walk, that would not only get your vitamin D from the sun, but it would also kind of help you with movement, increase your oxygen flow. All these things are really good, but they also just increase the ability to fall asleep faster. Awesome. All right. One more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I want you to limit caffeine. Obviously, some of these seem really obvious, right? Like limit caffeine makes sense. I like to cut it out at about noon. I know some people like to go a little later, but sometimes you've ever like lay there in the middle of the night and wondered why it is that you couldn't sleep, and you kind of track back and you're like, oh yeah, I had that Diet Coke late in the afternoon. It really does make a difference. So if you keep that in mind, just as you're doing it, I think that's smart.
Okay, awesome. Although I've kind of been that, I can drink coffee, to cram for that test in college. I'd drink a pot of coffee at midnight going, I'm going to stay up all night and cram for this. No, I would fall right asleep.
You would fall asleep after drinking a pot of coffee?
Yeah.
That's impressive. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's impressive. All right. Last thing is my suggestion of not taking melatonin. So I know I've read a ton of research about melatonin and the struggle that it gives you the next day, not the next night, the next afternoon. So I would have you switch from melatonin to magnesium glycinate. So I have found an increase of my sleep quality just by switching to magnesium. All my kids take magnesium instead of melatonin. So I know there's a lot of people who give like melatonin drops to their kids and stuff like that, but we are seeing like a crash in the next afternoon. So I would just suggest switching from melatonin to magnesium.
Interesting. And then that's just a supplement? I mean, so.
Yep. Yeah, I buy mine on Amazon. And I buy magnesium glycinate. So magnesium's a funny one because it comes in different forms. So magnesium citrate, this is going to be awkward. If you're ever constipated, that's the one that causes that problem to go away. But magnesium glycinate is the one that kind of relaxes your muscles and helps you sleep. And I really saw a huge difference in my sleep quality, the amount of sleep I needed with magnesium glycinate.
And then I had heard too that with the melatonin that you shouldn't take that every day. Even I don't have any research to quote necessarily, but that's what I'd heard. And I'm like, oh, I was taking that, kind of regularly because the gummies taste good. And yeah. And so is there any fear or risk with the magnesium glycinate too?
No, it's one of those things that actually your body needs. So magnesium's a good one to have. In fact, my kids also, to fall asleep even faster, take L-tryptophan. And everybody knows that that's the turkey one. That's the the natural one that you find in turkey. So they take magnesium glycinate before bed and L-tryptophan.
Awesome.
I know, not a doctor, but those things are definitely working for our sleep quality and just helping us kind of get through everything that we're going through.
Right. Well, I'm sure you wished you knew all of this years and years and years ago with a
little
5.
That's right. Exactly.
Goodness. Well, thank you so much, Erin. And I see future shows with you on, because you, again, are a woman of many talents, and we are lucky to have you as a Woodstock resident. So I'm so glad your roots are here and your kids are, staying in the area so far. And the more Careys, the better. That's the way I see it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And so if you are interested in learning more about facesofnarcolepsy.org, that's the website. They're also on Facebook, and you certainly get an earful and ways to contribute to their cause as well. So on that note, thank you. We're going to close out this episode of Kim Keefe's Community Corner, but keep tuning in, and we'll throw some links in down below for easy access later on too. So again, thank you, Erin, and
thank you.
Enjoy your sleep tonight.
That's right.